Okay, today we're going to spend a brief day on special cases. If you understand this rule, it can be helpful in certain situations. I warn you, though, very strongly, it has to be these exact cases. Okay? So the first one we have is where you have a minus b times a plus b. Or you can see some of the examples we're going to do down here. Standard ones you're going to see is x minus a number and then x plus the same number. Okay. As soon as I were to change this, if I did, as soon as I change this to like a 4, this is no longer a special case and you can't use this formula. I can't say that enough, and I'll say that multiple times throughout today's notes. So what the formula is in this case, when you have the difference of squares, so one positive, one negative, you just square the first number and subtract the square of the second number. So here's what the visual is over here, and you'll notice that the reason we just end up with a squared and b squared is because these two things are opposite. And since they're opposite, they're going to cancel. All right, so I'm going to do it both ways here, okay, just to show you. You can do these. You don't have to memorize this formula. You can continue to do these the old way. So on this first one, if I wanted, since this is what we're leading into this week, I can split this first one up and do my distributive property, and I do x times x plus 5, and then I have minus 5 times x plus 5. So remember from last week, that goes here, and this negative 5 goes there, and they both go in front of our second product, okay, in parentheses there, our factor. So x, now I distribute in x times x is x squared, 5 times x is 5x, but then you'll notice over here, negative 5 times x is negative 5x, so those two are going to cancel. Negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25. So you get x squared minus 25. Okay? So on these ones here, you just square the first number. X times x is x squared. And negative 10 times positive 10 is negative 100. Down here, you got to be a little more careful because you have 2 and y, and you're squaring it. So if you look at the formula up here, you're squaring all of the a, and this 2y represents a. So 2y times 2y is 4y squared. And then you're going to subtract that 3 times 3, which is 9. Over here, 25y squared, because you have 5y times 5y. And I'm going to subtract 36. So down here, now that's the only time when you have the difference of squares, that is the only time that the middle drops out. You can see that the 5x is canceled there. Down here, the middles don't cancel out. So if I do this the algebraic way, I would split these two things up. Right? So I would have 2x, but then since we're squaring something, this is the same thing. You have 2x plus 3. And then over here, I have my 3. Times 2x plus 3. So when I do this, 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3 is 6x. And then 3 times 2x is also 6x. And 3 times 3 is 9. So this one is a little trickier because there is a middle, but what you'll notice is that we just double it. So we multiply, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take 2x times 3. You get 6x, and then you double it every time, and that'll give you the inside part of 12x. I don't like using the formula on these, but you can. And again, you can only use this formula that we're going to get to in a minute when they match identically. So here, if we do the table method, which some of you may like, you have the 4x squared there, 6x there, 6x there, and 3 times 3 is 9. And again, those would combine. and I get the same answer we wrote over there. So what is our pattern? Well, the pattern is similar to the last time in that you're going to have the a squared here and the b squared here. But as I alluded to previously, you have how many different 6x's? You had 2 of them. So you take 2 and you multiply it times a and b. And so there's your a, there's your b up here. So you would do 2x times 3 times 2. So you do 2, and this is how we write it, 2x times 3. And then since this is multiplication, you can do it in any order. Okay, 2 times 2x is 4x times 3, and again, there is your 12x. Now, if it's a minus, it's very similar, except I'm going to do this the algebraic way, 5x times 5x minus 2, and then we have our negative 2 times 5x minus 2. So what happens is you end up with 25x squared, and then we're going to subtract 10x, and then over here we have negative 2 times 5x, so we're going to subtract 10x again, and then 2 negatives, negative 2 times negative 2 equals a positive 4. So again, you have that 2, but this time we're subtracting it. We have two things in the middle. So you have that 25x squared, but now we're subtracting 20x and then adding 4. So that's the only difference between these two. So if we did it with the table method, we have 25x squared minus 10x minus 10x, because you're doing this negative 2 times 5x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Those combine to get that negative 20x over here. So what happens on this one? The only difference is that you have a squared and you have b squared, but then you have 2ab that you are subtracting. So you can continue these, and I'm going to do these quickly. I'm going to do 2 addition and 2 subtraction. So just to rewrite it here, remember our formula for the addition ones is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. It only works when you have the same number being multiplied and squared. So what do we have here? Well, I have a squared. So this is what I need to see for work. Okay, work requirement. So you're going to, you can just write the 16 x squared, that's fine. But then here, I want you to write just like this, 2 times 4x times 6. And then you can do your b squared. So I want to see this part so that I know that you're applying the formula. And then you have 2 times 24, so you end up with 48x. And one more time, 8x squared, so you end up with 64x squared plus 2 times 8x times 1 plus 1 squared, which we know is just 1. So we end up with a final answer of 64x squared plus 16x, because there's 2 times 8x times 1 plus 1. So just adding this one extra step does not take that long. Okay, remember our formula here is now a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So we end up with 49x squared, 7x times 7x, minus 2 times the 7x, and then in this case you got to be tricky or careful of the trick here. You don't write a negative 8, okay, because you're just writing down that 8. We're already accounting for it by the negative, but that's where the subtraction is there. Because remember, if we go back up here, remember your answer is a minus something. So in this case, we would want, and then we add the b squared. So 8 times 8 is 64. Or negative 8 times negative 8 is 64 actually in this one. So we have to subtract it, and that's where that negative is. So you end up with 49x squared. 2 times 7x is 14x. 14 times 8 is 112. So we are subtracting 112x. And we're adding 64. If I made this a negative 8, then I would have two negatives, and it would equal a positive, which we don't want. Last one, 7. Similar to the last one, 7x times 7x, already did it. 49x squared minus 2 times 7x times 3. Remember, you just write down the b. The b is 3. And then you're adding 9 because you have negative 3 times negative 3. So you end up with 49x squared. And that is minus 2 times 7 is 14 times 3 is 42x that you subtract. And 89. So you're going to fly right through these today. It's an easy start to your Monday. You're going to do the odd problem. So if you've listened to this video and you've listened to the end of it, you know that you are just doing the odds. Okay, so 1 through 23 odd on page 16. That is all. Happy Monday.